I am Captain Foley of Trekyards. Resistance is futile. We will educate you or something.
We'll add our technological intelligentness to your own.
Something like that.
You'll subscribe to join us. Not liking is futile.
There you go. Yes, I was going to say something about not subscribing is futile, but yeah, that's good. Anyway, he's Commander Cockins.
He's
Captain Foley.
Yes.
Yeah, and welcome back to Trekyards, guys. Today we're talking about the Borg. More specifically, in the latest episode of Lower Decks, I Excretius, we get to see the inside of a Borg cube. We got to see a whole bunch of Borg stuff as part of a training simulation that Boimler was part of. And we're going to talk about that today. We even had the return of Alex Krieg as the Borg Queen, which is awesome. So,
having met
to talk about
Alice in the between time, since her movie and Endgame and this, it's lovely to see. She was a lovely person to interview.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to do some visual comparisons and just see how well Lower Decks does its job of showing the canon and the world.
Well, in fact, this is a really interesting one. Besides the fact that we get the most screen time in this segment, really. They kind of go in and out, but it's the big one. Obviously, conceptually, this is the biggest. Ooh, the Borg are back. Great. But if you think about what the Borg are, they have such a evolved look. You have the early TNG stuff, you have the late TNG stuff, you have the Voyager stuff, the First Contact stuff. So how they look, already I'd say, well, which version? You know, the Voyager, corridor Borg things look so different to early TNG. And so the question is, well, with these comparisons, where have they hearkened? And have they gone literally faithful? Have they limited themselves to the budget of the TNG, say, for example, where they can only build so much? There's no limit here. But it's also animated, so how much detail do you choose to put in? So where would they go? How have they gone? It's a weird thing to think about. Or do they go sort of very real with it? What would a Borg cube really look like? You know, without any sort of need for budget. I mean, how did you feel overall with all the Borg in this? The look, anyway.
It felt way more like TNG Borg than Voyager to me. I could just be because we saw the Borg babies and stuff. It just seems like the Borg cubes weren't as advanced or didn't look as advanced as they did. I think they were harking back to Best of Both Worlds with the whole simulation vibe. Did you get that feeling as well? That it was a little more TNG than Voyager based as far as the cubes go?
Well, once we get to Locutus, it's kind of obvious there's a slight parallel there. I mean, the cube felt very, and this is before the screen caps, felt very how you would think it could look, but not trying to be this movie quality. So it was very repeating patterns, very whatever. Whereas it didn't have those strobes, didn't have the dark lighting, didn't have those really harsh. It didn't go for scary. It went for more beehive, because all the different Borg have slightly different ways of making them more scary. And Voyager's a very specific version. But yeah, Borg babies, and then obviously Borg sphere, Borg escape sphere. It's all very varied. But yes, I've got some comparison shots here. So the first shot compares the base corridor to that of the thing that is definitely most close to, which is the first time we see the Borg, or at least the Best of Both Worlds. I mean, the parallels, you can see the alcove style. This is where they've come from, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a little bit scarier and darker in Lower Decks, I gotta admit.
Yeah, definitely pulled the green, which wasn't in the
Yeah.
TNG one. But you can even see those little light orbs at the top.
Well, one of the things I already mentioned was the Borg babies, which was interesting to see. They never really continued that on much. We saw them, and we're wondering, I guess they just assimilate babies, which seems like a silly thing to do. But, I mean, we learn about Annika Hansen later, becomes 709, was assimilated as a child. But I remember when the babies thing happened, it's like, how did the Borg make babies? Because we didn't really know that they would assimilate everything at that point. So it was a really nice touch that they added that in here.
And you can see the direct side by side. I mean, it's you got it, guys. Same box, same babies. Although certainly more cutesy. I mean, it's an odd concept by itself. It never quite made sense, but it always depends how you take it. We also know that in the Borg episode of Voyager, where we see meet the Borg children, that's when they take that to the extreme. We see various ages, etc., and they would mature in chambers and actually grow quicker than they would normally. But if you don't really see Borg drones actually thinking, yes, I should simulate this 1-year-old. This 6-month-year-old with nanoprobes, because they'll help the collective. It's like, you don't, or just warp to another planet and simulate the 50 million more adults. It's a necessary effort. There must be some extra bonus of having like assimilated from birth, where your body's more accustomed to the tech, or you can easily graft. Because if you come from a blank slate, you can mold them genetically to be more accepting of cooler tech. Whereas if you're just trying to, chop off a guy's arm, put a new arm on, there's a limited amount of stuff the body can heal. But kids, we know, can hold more information, can whatever. So I'm guessing it's to produce more elaborate drones if they have opportunity, I guess.
Possibly. It could also just be that the Borg don't, they don't waste anything. Like if they capture a ship that has children on board, they're not going to just like, whoop. They can just add that to their, to make them stronger. Not necessarily that they'd go after kids. Just I think it's if it's on board a ship that they assimilate or something that, there's probably advantages to, yes, having them. Next shot is the big expanse that you see quite a few times actually in Star Trek, of just the interior of the cube and the different levels. And I gotta say, it looks really good in Lower Decks. I really like that look. It's kind of a refined look, kind of between Picard, Voyager, and TNG.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely some harkenings to Picard, although really there's not really much else apart from the TNG stuff there. They obviously moved the placement of the drone alcove tops, but those were the same as they are in the rest of the episode, so I guess they just took their own assets and moved it. But I find the other one more literal, is that whereas the TNG one has a lot more personality, there's extra pipes, extra details, this is just literally a wall of alcoves. No ifs or buts, there's nothing else, copy and paste, but that's kind of what you would expect, so it actually works slightly better, even though less personality.
Yeah, it looks great though. I love the incorporation of the green they did with Lower Decks. I think it's just like the ideal Borg look. But
I still think Voyager was the epitome, but they put a lot of effort into them.
Yeah,
so
that's good. Next up is the Borg Queen. Like I said earlier, Alice Creed returns as the Borg Queen. Her voice, of course, obviously sounds older because she's older. But honestly, damn, looks good. The comparisons here are great.
Yeah, it's finding the right angle. As with all these Trek things, we're so accustomed to Discovery and Picard where they don't do visuals correctly, and so we have to say, oh dear. And so the fact we give Lower Decks credit for just doing the correct thing almost feels sad at this point. They have perfect reference. They have behind-the-scenes pictures. They have sketches. Like, they should be able to get them right. When they don't get these things right, that's a choice, not a lack of quality. Sometimes there are mistakes as well, as a few mistakes have been pointed out in this episode already from people online, like that isn't this and that isn't. But those are just mistakes. And so it's more than a case of how do you artistically interpret the Borg Queen in this style. I think they went pretty far out of the vibe in this. I think it's obviously is what it's trying to be, but the head especially doesn't look right to me. Like the way it looks just misproportioned and misaligned to the body a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got the thinner neck. I think is one of the things that throws you off right now, but that's the animation style. I think that's the big thing, because otherwise the head looks pretty accurate as far as shape goes, especially with the tubes at the back.
I guess also her chin is just too thick and like her face is too fat. Her face is more curvy in the original, and it kind of give her more sleek, whereas she looks far more bulky in this, at least in comparison. And the pipes also at the top are far less intrusive, because they are meant to be very integrate-y. So it just looks like a big bald head, and then some almost half dreadlocks. So it's a stylistic version. I would like it to be slightly more close, but yeah, I think the neck also puts it off. The clothing is great. It's a fine representation, and it's obviously, it's not the Borg Queen, it's a holodeck Borg Queen anyway. And who says even Alice Krieg's version, because there might be more variants of aliens. So it's kind of it's fine, Stuart. It's good. Wish had a few more lines, but at least we had two small segments that were nice.
But of course we get the assimilated Boimler, I guess Excretius, if you go by the name of the episode, which has a very Locutus vibe. I thought it was actually more similar to Locutus, but now actually looking at it, it's quite a bit different. Different placement of tubes. The top of the head piece is different as well, but you've also got the laser, which is actually higher on Boimlers than it is on Picards. Yeah,
they've done, I think, appropriate here. It's not the same, but it feels the same, which shows that you don't remember it, as in all of us, don't remember it as good as we think we do. In fact, the Picard's outfit is always undersold. It's like, why is his entire chest just a shirt? Like, you think it was looking way more impressive, but it really was quite lackluster as a costume. It was the head that got you, not everything else. He should have been more armored. But I mean, Patrick probably said no. Sorry, this is my last appearance. No, I'm not being another 2 hours of makeup just for 3 more pieces. No, which is okay. Whereas Boimler can be head to toe, and yeah, shaved head. He doesn't look like a happy chappy, which makes sense. I kind of wish we had more tubing detail, to be honest. It kind of feels like he's wearing armor rather than Borg. It's a small distinction, but I wish there was a few more of those intricate tubes. Or like, this classic blinkies from the Voyager thing. But he's obviously meant to feel more like Locutus of the unique Borg, so it wouldn't look conventional. Double-edged sword there.
Yeah, and I always got the feeling that Locutus was just like the first step of becoming Borgified. Like, they put the arm piece on without cutting his arm off. They changed the skin tone, or injected the nanites, I guess that would be. But they just didn't get around to finishing him up. Like, he would have been, give him another year and he would have looked a lot different, I guess.
Always good to see the Borg shield effect. So much more like the Voyager one. It makes sense. Instantly ignore it, throw it at the dude. We've always kind of talked about that. Also note, they're not all men, which they mostly were men in the original movie, or original TNG, and they're not all humans. Although, it would have been nice to see a Klingon or Andorian. They went out with a couple of different head vibes, but I guess that would defeat the homogeneous feel. So again, double-edged sword.
Yeah, one thing that bugged me about this episode actually was the idea of a Borg escape ship as being the sphere, because that's not what it was in First Contact. That was the Borg Queen's thing. And I also got the sense that was what was the thing that could travel through time and create the chronoton field, not necessarily the cube itself. So I thought that was a little bit of an odd choice, and we know that when we compared the size, because you see him jump down and you see it in the hangar, it looks like a shuttlecraft almost size. I never got that sense either from First Contact. I always thought it was much larger.
Yeah, so the Borg sphere in First Contact, we know the scale charts. It's like 1/4 of the height, which still makes it bigger than most starships. We can see those things in Voyager. It's bigger than the Intrepid class, etc. And we even see a replicated version of that sphere going in and out. But if you look at the wide shot, you can see the tube it comes out of, and it's tiny. So it is not. It's a tricky one. They're telling us it's a Borg sphere because it literally is a Borg spherical ship. But the scaling is like 1/10 the size of the other one it would have been. So it is an auxiliary craft style coming out of like what looks to be a tailpipe style hole. I mean, I guess it could be the Borg Queen's personal escape unit. But it more plays for simple joke mechanic. It doesn't quite work, but it would have been stupid beyond belief to say he hijacked the Borg sphere. Like, it's silly enough he hijacked a single craft. At least if it was a small craft, you could argue it's got a smaller computer system to hack into. But yeah, it's the way it kind of plays. It feels as if it's a sphere, but it really isn't. At least it's a sphere. So a bit weird. I could have done with it being a new shape, because a sphere is not very efficient in a ship that size, like it's rounded. It could have done a Borg diamond, like a Borg triangle, something that launches from a little escape pod hatches, or a Borg Borg obelisk from like 2001, like literally a one drone sized thing. That could have been kind of fun, and it just launches. So yeah, it's a gag more than real, but again, it's a holodeck simulation, and if they don't know Borg cubes inside and out, which they might not at this point still, because you've never necessarily had time to scan one up close in the way you'd like to. Yeah, Borg sphere is part of a simulation, It ain't real, it's all a bit fictional. But it's good, Stuart. They did Borg well. And what a way of having a full Borg appearance, and still not answering the question of how are the Borg in this timeline because of post-Endgame. Didn't answer it at all, but still had a full fun Borg episode. Good job.
And on that note, guys, let us know in the comment section what you think about the Borg appearance in this last episode of Lower Decks. Even though it is a holodeck simulation, is there anything you noticed or wanted to talk about? Put it in the comment section down below. We love reading those, and we love you guys engaging with the community. Speaking of, you can do that live almost every week when we do our live videos and discussions like this. So if you want to join us for those, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have the notification bell icon to all so you don't miss those. And before you do any of that, just hit that like button real quick. It's a really easy way to help us out.
Have you clicked it yet?
It looks like this.
Yes. Click. Yes. Yes. And of course, if you want to support us, do all of our videos, all of our comparisons, all of our thoughts, all of our analysis and breakdowns. Patreon, PayPal, join the channel, Super Chat, all the great ways, and all the links down below in the description. You guys know the ways, and even $5 a month on the Patreon does make a difference.
That's right. So until next time, guys, when you're fully assimilated into our collective by hitting that subscribe button, I am Captain Foley.
And I'm Connor Coggins.
And we'll see you guys later.